More microbiology, let's talk about anthrax. So anthrax is probably most well known for people being absolutely terrified of getting it mailed to them in around 2001. So anthrax is a type of bacteria that can cause flu-like symptoms and stuff due to the anthrax toxins it produces when it infects a host. Anthrax is contracted by inhaling the anthrax spores or eating contaminated meat that has the anthrax already in it. So anthrax is a zoonotic disease, meaning it gets transferred from its original animal host to humans. So the initial anthrax infection looks very similar to just a regular flu with like chills and fever and coughing, etc. Then the infection appears to go away for a few days, but occasionally can reoccur and cause lung problems, pneumonia, etc., and can eventually result in death, which is why people were so scared of getting it mailed to them. Now, anthrax is relatively common in large herd animals such as bison and caribou. And what happens with them is occasionally just anthrax infections can just pop up randomly and kill off entire herds of these animals. But what's very interesting about this is these outbreaks don't happen they're very random, I guess. So one day it'll be completely fine, this population of caribou or something will just be thriving, and the next day, then in a little bit, they're all just dead. And people go and be like, hey, why are all of our fucking caribou dead? And they can test positive for anthrax. The anthrax bacteria and multiple other species of bacteria can form what are called endospores. So in unfavorable conditions where the bacteria doesn't have enough water, or it's too cold, or it's too hot, bacteria are just like, nope, I'm out, they can form these endospores and essentially lay dormant for however many years it takes for the conditions to become favorable for the bacteria to reactivate. And in the case of anthrax, it can remain dormant in soil for many years. Then, when conditions become more favorable to the bacteria, they're like, oh, great, this is perfect. And then they come back and make their way into their hosts. Normally wild, herd animal populations, such as caribou or bison, but can also be present in domestic populations, such as cattle, sheep, and horses. And unfortunately, since this anthrax is such a serious disease, most of the time those populations, if they don't die off naturally right away, they do have to be euthanized. The same with domestic populations. But since you can still contract the anthrax from infected meat, there has to be a very special way of dealing with these. So the preferred method of disposal of anthrax-infected carcasses is incineration, but incineration is not always possible, and it's also not great for the environment. So a couple years ago, my professor for microbiology was telling our class, when we were talking about anthrax, he was telling about one of his colleagues that was researching anthrax. And her method of disposal was very interesting to me. So anthrax is an aerobic bacteria, which means they require oxygen to survive and make their spores and reproduce. So the method of disposal that she used when they were dealing with a herd of, I think it was caribou or bison, that were killed by anthrax, what they did was completely cover the entire area with impermeable plastic covering. The entire thing, all of it. So what that does is, one, it keeps scavengers and predators from getting at the carcass, and those, therefore, becoming infected and spreading the disease. So, if a coyote came and ate one of the infected carcasses, it would then in itself contract anthrax and continue to spread the disease. The other thing that these tarps did was deprive the bacteria of the necessary oxygen, and so the bacteria were unable to reproduce and then died. Finally, another last interesting tidbit of information is that historical and just fossil, I guess, records show that anthrax was likely brought from Asia to the Americas along with the first humans going over there. The first record, first evidence of anthrax in the Americas coincides very, very closely with some of the first records of human migration to the Americas. So it is likely that migratory humans and also migratory herd animals, when they were first coming over to the Americas, likely brought anthrax over with them, which I just think is another interesting fact.